Good afternoon, everyone. ASLI has partnered with Standardwise International through their Indian subsidiary Standardwise International India, SWII, and CommonAge to roll out the first ever standards and accreditation matrix for the private sector in the space of senior living and care communities. The collaborations between SWI, CommonAge, and ASLI brings together an extraordinarily strong group with significant expertise to introduce and promote senior living and care standards along with an accreditation matrix for India. Now I would like to introduce the moderator for our session, Mr. Mansoor Dalal. Mr. Mansoor Dalal is the founder of Association of Senior Living India and has been instrumental in ASLI's, SWI and CommonAge partnership. Mr. Dalal, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bani, for that quick introduction, and good afternoon to our participants. I can see that we are nearing 50 participants across the globe. We have participants, of course, from India, from Canada, from South Africa, Europe, and of course, Australia, David. So friends, welcome to the launch, as Bani said, and the rollout of the first ever standards and accreditation program for this industry. This program has been a result of a tri-party agreement between ASLI, that's our nodal association and the only association for the country, CommonAge, another nodal association and the only association for the Commonwealth countries of 54 countries, and SWI, that's Standardwise International from Australia, courtesy David. And this is specifically standards have been created for the Indian context and ethos. And as Bani said, it brings a tremendous amount of force, and the accreditation certificate would be endorsed by CommonAge, ASLI, and of course SWI. So let me jump right in and introduce the panelists that are here in front of you, friends. And I start off with Mr. Ankur Gupta, Chairman of ASLI. Ankur has been a co-founder with me and is a joint managing director of Ashiana Housing Limited, has completed his MS in real estate from New York. And during his MS as well as Ashiana, he has focused on residential projects for senior citizens. Ashiana at the moment has 1,700 units and 1,500 under construction and 4 different geographical locations, and Calcutta to be added as a 5th. Ankur's success has been in selling and management of the senior housing concept and enjoying retirement lifestyle. He is now implementing the thought of aging in place in Bhiwadi and other centers. The panelist from SWI is the founder of SWI itself, David Steven. David is there on the screen in front of you. SWI is based in London, UK, Sydney, and now India. SWI offers advice in the fields of setting and reviewing standards for senior living communities, design and development, governance, risk management, and quality assurance. He has been working in the senior living and aged care sector in Australia for the past 30 years. And David has provided strategic advice to government, for profit and not-for-profit organizations for the 25-year planning period in 2025 in the areas of aging, senior living, and independent housing. We also have with us Mr. Andrew Larpent, Chairman of CommonAge. Andrew is known to us. He was the keynote speaker in our second ASLI conclave in 2019 on 1st of October. Andrew has 33 years of military experience and retired as a lieutenant colonel. He commanded the regiment of frontline combat operations during the Gulf War in 1991. After the army, he started the second innings, I would say, in joining a not-for-profit sector as a CEO for the UK Children's Cancer Charity. He then went on to Somerset Care Group as the CEO. He was the founding director of the UK National Care Forum. He was also director of International Association of Homes and Services for the Aging, now known as Global Aging Network. In 2011, he shifted to Australia and was the CEO of Southern Cross Care, one of the largest not-for-profit organizations in Australia. He then retired back, if I may say so, back to UK and started his third innings, and which he started in 2013 of CommonAge, and he's now a very, very active and a very dynamic chairman of CommonAge and supporting older people across 54 Commonwealth countries. He is also a trustee of the Abbeyfield Society, which supports organization for older people. May I also now introduce Dr. Renu Varughese, Chairperson of Travancore Foundation. Dr. Renu is a PhD in gerontology and an associate professor at Mercy College, New York, USA. Dr. Vargas has, like David, more than 30 years of experience in long-term care centers as a clinical educator and consultant. Her doctoral research of comparative study was in senior care for India in 2002 and 5. Dr. Varghese, friends, is also the recipient of Fulbright Scholarship twice in 2015 and in 2019. Our Fulbright research has only focused on cultural appropriate resident assessment tool for assessing and planning person-centered area for residents in senior care for India. Dr. Varghese also serves as a member of the Cross-Cultural Research Advisory Committee for Research on Aging at Tirupati and is member of the Association of Health Psychologists. Friends, so that is our panel. And because this is a very new concept, for the first time, standards are being introduced in India and for the country. And as we just saw during the session with Mr. Subramaniam, and we were so gladdened that he has also been trying to push our standards. I mean, he's encouraging that the private sector also comes out with the standards. Let me quickly show you very quickly what these standards are all going to be about. And then I will run down to the panelists and take them for questions. So friends, can the slides be seen? So we have the key features of the standards, friends, I was telling you is, and these standards are an attempt to only adapt and enhance an existing template for application in India. It focuses on cultural sensitivity, best practices, local norms, local ethos and context, and government values, operational, legal, financial, geographical requirements. These standards have been a result of contribution by senior members of ASLI, which has been taken as a base point of reference. The objective was to introduce a preliminary code of operations for self-regulation only, taking best practices from India, developed markets across the world, and to include broader societal or unique community aspects to represent expected elements of corporate and social responsibilities. These standards reflect the resident's perspective and distinguishes core and monetary requirements from a development or optional outcome. It follows a system-based approach by organizations which require evidence of documenting, implementing, communicating, improving, and reviewing systems. These standards have criteria that include mandatory and optional indicators, which are then associated with evidence requirements. This allows communities, because it's for the first time that we are introducing, and it allows across all socioeconomic strata to engage even at the entry and the basic levels, while having an aspirational line of sight in improvement over time and development of the organization resources, which reflect in their rating scores getting upgraded and they getting accredited higher. It comprises a simple four-level hierarchy, which commences with a quality standards intent. It follows by multiple requirements of criteria, which are met to be achieved as stated intent. These criteria are further broken up into smaller indicators, which are measured by evidences which are measurable. This is initial desktop assessment is done and a review process is done online. And in these times, that's the most prudent thing to do. And this is then followed after the online assessment is done by a validation on site for certain requirements. And the final recommendation is then translated directly into a final rating score, which is valid for a 3-year period. This rating score, friends, has got various criteria. It has got the bronze criteria, which gets 320 or 320 mandatory criteria, which have to be met. In silver, is requirement of only 50% of the incremental. In gold is only 75% of the incremental, and in platinum only 85% of the incremental. The idea being to have a step-by-step slow process into understanding how the standards can work. The standards have been divided into 8 criteria of governance, management and personal, design and construction, facility management, home care and additional services in the senior community and retirement village space, resident engagement and experience, technology and information management. And for the first time, this is the first time, this is not even, this is for the first time that this section has been introduced for India in standards by SWI, hygiene, safety, infection prevention, and pandemic control. So this is for the first time that these standards are being introduced in India. The advantages, friends, are there to see: customer security, satisfaction and pride, customer being the senior citizen, commercial advantage and industry respect for the organization that implements the standards, recognition and differentiation in the marketplace, and a demonstrable and visible commitment to ethical standards and customer service, something which even the earlier panelists were very, very keen about, to demonstrate ethical standards and customer service. And this also attracts and retains staff and management for the provider. At the moment, we are in the pilot stage. Our pilot partners are actually on the ground assessing it. The pilot stage has even commenced. And the pilot partners are Travancore Foundation, Columbia Pacific Communities, UCC Care Private Limited as a Golden Estate, Ashiana Housing, and Atashri Homes from Pune. So friends, this is our team. And let me go back to the questions. And I hope that has been very brief, but some sort of a spotlight or a window on what we are about to speak about. So friends, I'll now take on questions. And if there are any questions that we cannot do because of time constraint, please put it on the chat. We will come back to you individually, each and every one of you. Thank you so much for coming in. So David, can I start with you? In implementing standards worldwide, David, what is the best tip that you can give for India when we are implementing standards for our industry?
Thank you, Mansoor. And we're immensely proud to be involved with ASLI and CommonAge in developing and implementing these standards. The best tip is that they remain resident focused on the best quality, the best safety for residents, and educate those residents and consumers about the benefits of having benchmarks, affirming the achievements of the organization, but also the opportunities for improvement. And so that drives the standards forward, the growth, the recognition, the differentiation, as you mentioned, the ethical standards. The workforce become attracted by working for an organization who has met their standards, and they become aspirational. So I think it's creating that culture that standards are an important part of quality and safety and organizational being. So thank you. It would be my highest tip. So thank you, Mansoor.
Thank you, David. That could be a great tip to do that. And I now want to bring in Andrew. Andrew as chair of CommonAge, straddling 54 countries. Andrew, you have seen these standards roll out in other countries and other Commonwealth countries, some of them for the last 10 years and more. Any pitfall or bumps that you would want India to watch out for? Anything that we can avoid making the same mistakes? Can we shorten the evolution curve? Andrew.
Mansoor, greetings to you and greetings to everybody who's attending this conclave. It is such a privilege to be able to be with you virtually after the wonderful experience that I had in 2019 when I was with you physically at your last conclave in Delhi. So greetings to everybody from all of us in CommonAge. It is wonderful to be here virtually, and I'm speaking to you from the depths of southern England, where it's cold and wet and miserable, but we're all locked down as you are. It's great to be with you. So thank you very much for that generous introduction. And you've asked me to comment on this. I think this is a most important initiative, and we really do congratulate the work that ASLI has put into developing these standards, which are specifically designed for the sector in India. But I want to just, as you've suggested, look at why I think this is so important. seen in other countries, particularly my own in the UK, what happens when sectors such as ours do not adopt voluntary standards. First, two things can then happen. Firstly, what will happen is that the consumer, sometimes advisedly, sometimes justifiably, and sometimes just through emotion and anxiety of the situation that they're in, the consumer will rise up and complain. And what happened in the UK was a large lobby group formed against what they felt was inadequate service being provided by the retirement living, as they're called, sector in this country. And it spawned the start of an organization which lobbied Parliament and the government to impose government regulations. And that's the second threat that can happen. If you don't regulate yourselves, governments feel it necessary to step in, and they tend to do so in a fairly broad brush and sometimes a bit of a heavy-handed and imprecise way. What is much better, and what will work, I'm sure, much better, is that the industry sets, designs, implements, and verifies its own standards. And in that way, you are doing something which is lighting a beacon in the sector for India, showing that organizations that really believe in the journey of their customer, and the customer is somebody who commits really the rest of their lives, when you think about it, to living in your settings. And they need to be able to be assured continually that they are living in an organization that really believes that they can do a better job tomorrow than they've done today, that are continually questing for improvement. If you do this, I think you will really light a beacon for your sector in India. And what I'm really hoping that you will do is you will then light that beacon, and it'll shine across into other countries, because there are other countries looking on as you are taking this brave step, and they are looking to see if they can emulate what is being done in India. So many congratulations. It's really important what you're doing, and we are very proud in CommonAge to be an endorsing partner and associated with this great initiative.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And yes, we all at ASLI are very enthused about that standards have now rolled out and coming in. And as we were told today by the government, the principal secretary of our ministry, that he's also, they're also going out and rolling the standards, but they are doing it at the minimum levels. Of course, he himself admitted that we have to do it at a much higher aspiration level, or so that it covers all spectrum of people. Thank you, David, for that. Dr. Renu, you have assisted me in formulating the standards, and helped me cross the I's and dot the I and cross the T's. Do you feel that these standards would be enough for the moment for us to go forward with our standardization and accreditation program? Or do you think it needs to be supplemented with other quality controls? And I ask you this advisedly because you have been dealing with other quality controls throughout in your career. Dr. Renu.
Thank you, Mr. Mansoor. Greetings to everyone. First, I would like to express my gratitude and how privileged I am to be the part of this initiative for India. So thank you, Mr. Stephens, and thank you, Mr. Larpent, and thank you, ASLI Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Dalal, for having me in this collaboration. And I really feel that this collaboration between ASLI CI and the SWI will bring great vitality to the country of India. As a researcher and a gerontologist who is associated with Indian gerontology for the last 20 years, lack of standards or lack of regulatory system was one of the things that I was grappling with. So I'm extremely glad to see that such initiative is coming to India. And I really would like to thank Mr. Mansoor Dalal for being taking an active part to bring this to India. As far as the standards are concerned, I feel that we have covered all the mandatory and some of the optional standards. So all the essentials of care are covered. However, I feel that some of the care homes now, starting with high care or skilled care, such as tracheostomy care or short-term rehab, parental feeds, and such services that really need skills. And I figured that, yes, those might be the second step that we can take in the matrix, in the standards. Other than that, we have covered almost everything that for all the population of or elder population that's being cared for in multiple settings. That is the continuum of care, whether it is independent care or retirement village or assisted living center or long-term care. We have covered all the mandatory standards that are essential. But I think as a second stage or stage 2, we can always come up with the skilled care services as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Renu. And of course, as one of our pilot partners, you are walking the talk and doing that in your communities as we speak. Ankur, you spoke to Mr. Subramaniam, the secretary, today morning, and it was very heartening when he said that they're coming out with the standards. You are one of the largest organizations in this community in this space. You've been there for a long time. Would you agree that this self-regulation would help the industry grow? And would you feel that it would create a more level playing field? Would you like to, advise some caution as we go along on this part, Ankur?
So, I think standards are very important. I remember when we created ASLI, it was your dream to come up with standards which we all can look at. So congratulations to you on all the hard work you've done. And finally, we've got an international organization which has done it in other countries to do it for India. I think it's a great step to self-regulate. Already the government was looking at regulating. And, I think if we create more self-regulation, the need for the government to step in would be lower. And the same thing I heard in Australia and New Zealand. I think New Zealand is highly self-regulated compared to Australia, and they were fairly happy that they're self-regulated. I think as a country, from a senior living play, I think self-regulation is critical. From a perspective of level playing field as well as a thought on caution. So one, I'm always worried, because there's self-regulations, how much within the country we're able to make sure people understand that they're buying something which is regulated, self-regulated. So the idea that the knowledge passes on, right now people don't understand senior living, and then to understand there's a standard behind it, and that standard has value. So one part of that piece is very critical because consumers are skeptical already. How do we make sure, as ASLI and Standard House, we work together and make sure all the members kind of follow those standards? Okay, so I think that's going to be one. Second, in the standard, I'm not been lucky enough to go through the standards yet, but I believe my team is working on it. The other fear is that I hope we don't. Sometimes standards drive up costs, and because we are catering to a larger segment, we need to understand where standards are not driving up costs for the consumer at the end of the day. So we want to be in the right element where consumer protection, and we're able to cater to a larger spectrum of the audience, and that too comes together very well. I believe you've done it, so that has been taken care of. And I heard you talk about silver, gold, platinum levels. And I think those levels are kind of taking care of minimum to aspirational situations. So I'm very happy about it. And I think it'll be very exciting to see how it goes.
Thank you, Ankur. You rightly said that. And the way we structured this, Ankur, was that we have kept the criteria of mandatory, which are only concerned with care and resident engagement. The criteria of, let us say, for example, of business continuity, of financial management, and so on and so forth. We have not kept that in the mandatory criteria, because that can be aspirational community-wise. But the purpose for which the senior citizen comes to us in the first place, care, and care, that is the only areas which we have kept that as mandatory, and then the rest is aspirational. And your point is well taken about New Zealand again, because, you know, when I went there for a conference last, and Ankur was that they were yelling that we have become too much self-regulated. We have a long way to go there. I hope we don't go that far, but it's a path that we need to take to at least come to a modicum of some standardization between ourselves, so there is some sort of a common thread and a common band running through. Very well said. And David, what do you feel would be the impact, or what is the impact that has happened in this pandemic and COVID, and that we have created the standards? We have, I mean, the first time India is launching the standards on pandemic. How do you feel it's going to play out, and what do you think would be the learning that SWI can share on this aspect of standards of pandemic hygiene and infection control?
Mansoor, I think it's a very pointed question, and one of the things, you know, behind Standards International is how can we support initiatives, projects where there's a great gain for people and the population, and to really improve lives. And I think we've all learned out of COVID that what an impact that has had across the globe, and what are the learnings from that. And by having a particular standard which supports organizations for more preparedness, more control management, awareness, is going to provide a more sense of surety, security, and confidence in the consumer. And particularly the sector across not just India but the globe is looking for senior living to be an important part of the modern aging, part of that solution. Moving away from residential care to more small household living, particularly senior living. And we can see that what's happening in India and the development and the co-development of standards with that is going to be a really important aspect of learning, and for the world to take notice of. And clearly the standards have been written in a contemporary context in relation to pandemic planning. So I think it's a very important step that we're taking, and we'll learn a lot from that. So, thank you.
Yeah, David, that's correct. You will glad to know, all of you, that we have got participants, from across the globe. At the moment that I speak, I've seen the participant list. We are crossing 68. And Andrew, what would you like to comment on what David just said? Considering that, we discussed in our last board meeting about South Africa and other learning and areas where we see a lot of work that needs to be done, and of course the Indian subcontinent in this context. Andrew?
Well, Mansoor, thank you. I have, through this organization, had the privilege of traveling to a number of countries and to see what is happening there. And I hope that our colleague Margie in South Africa might be listening, because it was a great privilege to be with her when she launched the South Africa Care Forum, which is the body that is trying to do and is doing similar work in trying to raise the bar in terms of standards. And I think what I've learned from travels and from other organizations, and particularly from the organization that I was privileged to lead in South Australia, is that the adoption of an organization of standards and the clear visibility that the organization really lives and breathes continuous improvement and the highest possible quality of service for its consumer and its customer. What that effect, the effect that has on the whole organization, and what I witnessed in my organization was the effect it had on staff culture, the effect it had on staff turnover, the effect it had on recruitment. People entering this sector as care workers or as staff in any form or other, they want to believe in the organization that they are joining. They want to have faith that that organization really gets it. And the way I like to think of it is that it really believes in the highest possible standard of service, right the way I describe it, from the boardroom to the bedroom, and that every member of staff it gets it. And we saw the effect, I've witnessed it, of the adoption of such a culture on staff turnover, on motivation, on that sense of belonging and joint commitment that people have to their organization. So I'm a huge believer in this, but it is all about, at the end of the day, I think it's about leadership. It is about that transmission of values throughout the organization, from the very top, i.e. from the chairman and the board, right the way through to the newest joined recruit who's just joined the organization. And if the customer and the customer's family sees that, and it is very evident when you walk into an organization when that is there, then everything then has this wonderful dynamic of continuous improvement, and that's why I'm a passionate believer in the value of standards.
I agree, and we do have a long way to go, Andrew, but then we have taken the first step, and hopefully we will be going in the right direction.
And what you've done, I think, which is so important, is you have designed this. Although I'm very, very interested in the and hope that this will translate into other countries, and we know that other countries are interested already. But what you have designed is specific and very much on the message for the Indian sector. You have learned from what has happened elsewhere, but what you've done is design a set of standards that specifically are relevant to your sector, which you know best. And what you don't want is people coming from internationally to tell you how to do things. But what you do want, I hope, is that encouragement, that sense that you are leading the way and that others are looking at you with great interest.
And Andrew, of course, now we are in the pilot stage, so we have a lot of learnings to still come through from members of ASLI who are doing the pilot, like Ankur and Columbia Pacific and Travancore of Dr. Renu, who are going to tell us more about how it can be more customized, so that, as Ankur said earlier, that it should not happen a burden, if I may use that word. Ankur was trying to say that it should become aspirational and easy to go rather than becoming a burden. And we are still learning, Andrew. We have started taking the first step, and we have a lot of learning to do from each other, from all the pilot partners, and the information flow will go right up to back to SWI Australia, and perhaps they can incorporate some of the things that we would be, because I can tell you with pride here that in India, we have done a much better job of pandemic control. At least our ASLI members have done a fabulous job of pandemic control for our senior citizens than what I hear elsewhere in the world, Andrew, especially in UK, if I may say.
Yeah, I absolutely concede that, and would say that we have got a lot to learn in this country. The pandemic has been a terrible experience in the care sector in many countries, my own very much included. And so this is about shared learning. It's about a journey that we are all on. And what I find so exciting is that, you know, we are if you like, a family of committed professionals across the world who are all wanting to go on this journey together. And where you lead, we and others will want to follow. So congratulations again on all that you're doing.
To all our members, yes, absolutely. Ankur, do you feel
so?
Bani?
Can I add to that, Mr. Dalal?
Please, Dr. Renu, please.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with Mr. Larpent on his views, and I just also want to thank you for having Travancore Foundation selected as the first pilot site for this, and we are extremely privileged and we are happy. And I personally feel that introducing such quality standards will have especially benefits. The first benefit is for the residents. I think as WHO defines the health as covering both mental, physical, psychosocial, and spiritual health. And I think also to have them functioning at the optimum level. So having standards, we will meet that purpose. Number two is to elevate the standards of the institution in order to deliver care that is not based on opinion or ideas, but it's based on best practices and evidence-based research. And lastly, I think it benefits, as Mr. Larpent indicated, that for the standards or the care providers or the caregivers will be able to monitor and evaluate their performance and then therefore continuous quality improvement of the care that they deliver. So it covers all aspects, and thank you for taking this initiative and bringing this to India so that the country, I am sure that the country will benefit from it. And I thank each one of you who worked for it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Renu. Thank you for that vote of affirmation. Ankur, do you feel what you spoke today morning and what Mr. Subramaniam affirmed about the national policy, which again was reaffirmed by Mr. Mishra when he said that we are doing urban ministries coming out with their own set of criteria and standards, if I may use that word. I'm using the word standards again so that it gets embedded. So, so Mr. Mishra said that same word about about bringing in some criteria and controls. Mr. Subramaniam at his end said controls. Mr. Subramaniam, of course, was very astute. He immediately qualified by saying that is for a lower income group, so that it becomes more clear. Do you feel that there could be a clash going forward? Or do you feel that is going to create more traction? Or do you feel that is going to create complement to each other and we can move in parallel direction?
So I hope they complement each other. That's the hope. But in the beginning, we will have a lot of challenges. People are going to confuse this word. Government officers sitting in center making these rules will not be understood by the guy in that city implementing the rule. And there will be challenges and there will be concerns from a perspective of which rule to take. And there will be, as you know, one of the things is that we as developers or operators have to take it upon ourselves to educate the local authorities in that market. And I think in the beginning, it's going to be a challenge, but over time, it's going to create a better understanding for both markets. We'll increase standards in both areas as we develop, evolve, and improve quality everywhere. I think I believe standards is an evolution process. It's not a one-day process. What we did about 16 years ago and what we are doing today are completely different, and that's how standards change in lots more delivery and everywhere. So I think in the beginning it's going to be hard for us developers, and especially people who are pioneers have a lot more challenges to kind of come up with. But I think as mindsets of entrepreneurs, we have to say that that's the challenge, and we know it's good for the industry. We need to figure out how to do it better.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Absolutely. We need to take up that challenge because it's for the good of the senior that we are so passionate about and we are so committed to. Absolutely agreed. Great. I mean, this is the next big frontier for us in this industry, Ankur, and that's how I see it. David, any last words that you would like to give to the organizations and communities that are going to adopt these standards and take it in their stride? And as Ankur said, that it may be challenging, but we need to do it. So what can you very concisely spell out? What direct achievements and visible gain that the organization can get if these standards are even met at the basic levels? David?
I think that quite rightly organisations will get some recognition and affirmation of the things they're doing really well, and that will resonate very positively about their organisation and back to the residents and staff. I think you'll find that the staff become more empowered and more upskilled in relation to their knowledge, and they're wanting to continuously improve and provide a high level of customer service. And in particular, I think it will, as Ankur said, I think it will promote an involvement and a development mindset, a culture of continuous improvement. And Mr. Larpent mentioned that as well. And we see organisations that have gone through the second and third cycle, and they're generally very, very positive and reflective about the gains in the maturity of the organisation, the culture around safety and quality and and customer service, and the attraction they have for staff and residents is a point that differentiates them. So I think we see those benefits and more, and we certainly see a lot of learning that's coming out of India that we can, that hopefully other countries will reflect upon and benefit from. That exportation of knowledge from India will be very, 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 very valued by the globe.
Well, thank you. I'm into that, and you know, it's again very heartening to see that we are in good hands, and have a lot of organizations behind us, a lot of intent, a lot of goodwill, a lot of passion behind us to get this thing moving. And as ASLI, I can only tell you, as you know, as part of the organization that ASLI is, we are a group of extremely passionate and driven people in this industry for care. And it may take some time for us to, you know, be there, but we will surely reach there, and reach there in the right spirit, with the right bandwidth. Any last words that anybody has for a couple of seconds, so that before I close, I don't want to overrun my time because of we are on virtual platforms. So Ankur.
I just want to be clear that when I meant the challenges, I also mean that there is a lot of value in standards, okay?
Of course.
So I am very clear. We need to understand those challenges to make sure that we don't get into that trap. So we, as you know, individual companies have to adopt these standards very well. And that's our biggest strength, both from a consumer and a company perspective. So I'm very excited about it. I think the evolution over the next year is going to be the driver of standards by itself. So I think this next year is going to be very critical for all of us.
Excellent, excellent. Andrew?
I just like to end with a quick story. When I arrived in Australia a few years ago to take care of the organization of which I'm immensely proud, Southern Cross Care, because we were on a journey ourselves, I found an organization there which was a bit trapped in, like a rabbit trapped in the headlights. Because my great colleague sitting next to me here virtually, Mr. David Stevens, used to come as the speaker to inspect our services. And we were terrified of the feedback we would come initially. But we gradually learned, and we quickly learned actually, that where you ascribe and you really ascribe to this idea of continuous improvement and high standards, then you cease to be afraid of the regulator coming in, and you welcome him to come, because you want to show off, you want to show how good you are. And I found that that was an immensely motivating dynamic in the organization, which allowed the staff to say, yeah, welcome the regulator, they're coming to see us, and we want to see them because we just are so proud of the service that we offer. We know that we are doing a good job, and we want that job to be validated and to be seen by others, because we know that that will then translate into the satisfaction, the comfort, the confidence that the residents have to live in our setting, in the knowledge that we are really an organization that aspires to the highest possible standards and never is restless, continually questing for to do a better job tomorrow than we've done today. And I think that is what is so exciting about this venture. I'm sure it will be an immensely rewarding and valuable experience for everybody who gets involved. And I look forward to watching with great interest how the standards are implemented. And I congratulate all of those organizations that have put their hands up to pioneer and to pilot the standards. And I hope that all the other ASLI members will want to join and get involved. And as an international organization supporting you and wanting to learn with you, we congratulate you very warmly and wish you every possible success in this venture.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you, friends, everybody. I am exactly beyond the dot. And thank you, participants, from joining in. I know some of you are very, very odd hours and across the country. Thank you so much for joining. And Andrew, may I just say one quick thing? When you said about people will feel very proud that we're doing a great job. Let me speak on behalf of almost all the ASLI members. We feel that even now, and we are going to feel much. We feel that even now when we are all of us here, we feel extremely proud that we're doing a great job of giving service. And an important thing, Andrew, this is very unique again, which I find in India. Most of the developers who are into this are hands-on themselves in their communities, which is also another very unique, which I have not seen across the world, but it's unique here at the moment. So yes, we are as fired, as enthused as all of you here, and all of us would take that first step and as Ankur said, add value, not only to ourselves, but also to the service and care that we give to our seniors. Thank you so much for joining in, friends. Thank you, participants. Thank you, Bani. That's a wrap up.